Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, I hope you're ready.
Today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
But I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Warning: the Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We're on the Lord's team, the winning side, so raise your glass. I would like to give an apology. Let's start off with an apology. I don't mean it in defense.
Greek apology?
I do not mean it in defense.
Okay.
I mean, like,
you're saying you're sorry.
Yes.
I forgive you.
Thank you. Dave and I run a Catholic radio station here in Tulsa, and recently, our radio station's internet went down. And our engineer said, "Hey, the internet's been knocked off grid, and I have to do some work on it. I'm going to run some backup programming."
And in his defense, we had told him we would like new backup programming.
Yes.
But failed to actually provide him
with
any new backup programming.
Right. And so what happened was he ran.
He took what he had,
and
which was
the
basically
Catholic
nothing
show.
but our show.
And ran the Catholic Man Show on Catholic radio for about 48 hours straight. And I was unaware of it until actually Father Sean Donovan texted me and was like, "Hey, I'm really getting all the nuances of the Catholic Man Show." And I was like, "What does that even mean?" And he started saying those little one-liners, I guess, that you and I typically say. And I was like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Yeah, well, I'm doing that because I keep hearing you."
I thought the interesting thing was all of like the weird phenomena that started happening. Like all the liberals on the liberal side of town, like all said they had migraines. The birth rate shot up during that 48 hours. I mean, it was like all these
the hospitals were
it was just like a lot of weird things that happened during that 48
hours.
Unexplained, really.
Yeah. So if you're listening in Tulsa, I apologize that for 48 hours.
We just think we are the best.
Yeah, that was not the case.
Wanted to run us.
Like, when I heard that, I was like, man.
For 2 whole days.
How egotistical. How egotistical does that sound? It's like, it's my station.
Adam and I have difference of opinion on this, okay? You're welcome.
It's like, I own the station, so you're going to listen to me for 48 hours. Like, that was the worst. I apologize.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yes. So, if you're not listening from Tulsa, you're welcome.
Yeah, I see. Why apologize when you could just say, "You're welcome"?
Well,
what can I say?
I felt like I needed
except you're welcome.
I felt like I needed to apologize.
Okay, well, you did it.
Yep. We are recording this evening on a Monday, meaning that we are drinking water, being on Exodus 90. This weekend,
pretty good water though.
This weekend was pretty jam-packed for both of us.
Yeah.
We celebrated my mom's birthday, and also my nephew was born on my mom's birthday.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Which is pretty awesome.
Welcome to the world, Blaze.
Yeah. Blaze Weston.
Do you think he's gonna set the world on fire?
I
hope
he so.
Does. Oh man,
not in like an art, like in a very spiritual way, not in a really, physical way.
I don't see as a boy
not a material
named
way.
Blaze how you avoid like at least a pyro phase. I mean, like, I think I'm still living in a pyro. I think I'm still going through a pyro phase. I love fire. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Don't you?
I do. I own a grill gun,
and I use my fireplace on the reg. You know, I like to burn things. I think like that's where like my pyromania and like living in a household. This is where candles come from. Okay, we can have just a controlled fire. I mean, at first you think candles are not manly until you like really experience it. And it's like, hey.
And also, your grandmother's birthday was this weekend.
My grandmother, Shirley Gavula, she is an absolutely incredible woman. One of the toughest old ladies ever. She turned 97. She's had COVID. No problem. 97.
No problem.
She looked fantastic. In fact, we thought she was going to die here about a month ago. My mom's a nurse. And in fact, my grandmother told me that my mom just wouldn't let her die. And my mom said that wasn't true. But that she didn't do anything. And grandma just got better, because she's a tough old lady.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah. And she looked at me, I thought, 'cause she like went through a pretty rough spell. So I kind of, when we went up to see her a couple weeks ago for Christmas, which is like right at that time, I kind of thought, like when old people get like close to death, they kind of like look emaciated a lot of times. And, it's amazing how different
she rebounded.
Very quickly. It's like you go and see him, it's like, oh, wow, you'd hardly recognize him. Yeah, she looked fantastic.
That's awesome.
I couldn't believe it. Anyway, so yesterday I had her birthday party. Then we went to another...
In Oklahoma City.
We went there, and then we came back for another birthday party. So for me, on a Sunday, eating sweets, it's about as good as it gets.
That's fair.
Cake twice. And
That's
ice cream. Cake and ice cream twice.
That's a win.
It was a great Sunday.
Good. So we didn't record yesterday for those reasons.
People are all over the place, yeah.
Yeah, we were all over, but it was good. Happy birthday, Mom.
I want to give a shout out to John Cornwell.
Okay.
Cornwell. He sent me a
nice English name.
What a beautiful English name. Like, he sent me an email about the cabinets. I really appreciated his advice. I do have an update on my cabinets. If we have time, do we have time for a cabinet?
Dave's cabinet segment.
I will not have an update every week.
I promise.
But I do have an update. I've been working on building a crosscut sled.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna need one for cutting down all kinds of stuff, and that's been progressing with varying degrees of failure.
Okay.
I had my first shop accident. I still have all my fingers.
That's good.
And I'm obviously being safe, but I was cutting a big piece of plywood, and it got kicked back right at me. It was an unpleasurable experience. My arm, luckily, took a lot of the force, and not like my gut, right?
Oh,
but I did hit me in the gut. But I had on my really thick belt that you got me.
Oh yeah,
it's my carrying belt, right? So it's really thick. A lot of great protection from plywood. They should maybe even market it that way. Like, hey,
if you're an idiot cutting plywood,
right, in the event of like launched plywood, this might help. It really did help me. So, but we're progressing. I'm progressing. Earlier today, I got the runners cut, and it's a fantastic fit.
Nice
for the bottom of this crosscut sled. So I'm gonna probably attach those tomorrow evening.
Okay. Also, Joan's birthday. It's Joan's birthday.
Lady Wone Posada.
Yeah. It's her birthday today, which is why Juan's not here. Juan hasn't been here in...
We don't even know if he's still friends with us.
Yeah. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I don't know. Like, over a month, maybe? I don't know. When was our Christmas party? I guess Epiphany or whatever?
It's been a while. But his son, Santi, has his first confession this Friday.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
He's my godson, so...
That's good.
Keep tabs on him.
Good.
It'll be good. It'll be good.
We're about 4 weeks out from Lady Haley giving birth.
Yes.
So we're getting really close there. That's going to be exciting.
What do you think? What do you think, boy or girl?
I'm going with boy. I'm
Playing the odds.
I'm playing the odds. I'm also just...
What would you prefer? Do you have a preference?
I would... No.
You do. You almost said one. What is it? Just tell us.
The reason why I'm picking a boy is that I feel like that if it was a girl, there'd be more clothes being bought.
Okay.
I think Haley would be buying things. because we don't have a lot of girl things.
But dude, if it's a girl,
I'm great.
We're gonna dump on you.
Oh yeah, you have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what you meant by that. I was like,
okay, that's gross and uncalled for.
Excuse me. Yeah. So, but in between all of that, we have we have a talk we're giving at Holy Family, and then the Oklahoma Catholic Men's Conference that I'm emceeing like a couple days after the birth of my child.
Nice.
That Haley allowed me to do, and then we're going to Rogers, Arkansas, in February. February 8th, I believe.
Yeah.
And then we're going to up in the Northeast for a men's conference in March.
Yes.
And then we're also going to Phoenix in March for the St. Philip Neri Festival.
Super
One of my
excited.
favorite things that happens.
Yeah. So if you are in the Phoenix area, look it up. Look up the St. Philip Neri
Festival.
Tickets
are on sale. It's a family event.
Yeah, it is. So there was a lot of families that have this really cool place out there, and
on a farm.
It's it's like comedy, Catholic comedy
community culture
conference. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's put on by lay people. Like it's a whole group of people that just kind of get together and say like we're gonna do this.
It's all about joy. It's
all about joy.
Because we're Catholic, we should be joyful.
That's right. I mean, we're Alleluia people.
Hallelujah, baby.
So, anyway, we got a lot of things coming up. You can go to thecatholicmanshow.com, sign up for our newsletter. We'll be sending out some play-by-plays here pretty quick. Also, if you support us on Patreon, you get a lot of really cool stuff like a Glencairn glass, Catholic Man Show Glencairn glass for whiskey or beer glasses, and you're able to participate in our book club. This can be starting up again here pretty quick. So, we'll be right back.
See, you just say it. Don't resist.
I did it.
Everybody says it. It's fine to say.
It's fine.
It's totally fine.
I don't want to be like everybody else.
You know what? You can tell Dr. Ray that we'll be right back. All right.
I don't want to be like everybody else.
You already are. All human beings are like substantially exactly the same. You already are just like everybody.
Modernist.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. Jimbo Baggins in the house.
Oh yeah, we didn't even say hi to Jim.
Hey Jim.
Hey Jim.
Looks like a delicious
Drinking
glass
whiskey.
of scotch you have there.
It's a bourbon.
Bourbon. Well, it is bourbon, but I said it looks like a delicious glass of scotch. Could be. But he's drinking some Oak and Eden, bottle finished.
Wheat and Spire.
4 on the yummies.
4 yummies.
4 yummies. So that's always good.
Whatever that means.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to talk about the hoodie and sweatshirt. I was supposed to already get that done. I was supposed to get that done today, and I just did not. So I apologize, but
you mean getting them out?
Yeah, getting them out to for sale. But I'm still trying to figure out exactly how many we're giving away.
But by the time this comes out, maybe they'll be ready.
Yeah, but I'm still trying to figure out exactly how many we're giving away to our $50 and up patrons. Because if you're a $50 and up patron, you get one for free. We have black, the one you're wearing. We also have white. This is Jim's. This is his extra. He wasn't wearing this, but
Jim, take your shirt off.
Aircraft carrier on the front of this one.
So limited release.
There is no Paradise for Cowards sweatshirt.
Yeah, I think I really like it. It's like my favorite hoodie, not just because it's our hoodie, but it's super comfortable. It's soft.
It is very soft.
And it's just well made. So anyway,
the thickness. I'm down with the thickness.
I dig. Also, if you go to ascensionpress.com, you can pick up our book, Living Beyond Sunday, Making Your Home a Holy Place. This is another reason why we're giving a talk at Holy Family and other places is because we wrote a book for Ascension Press.
Turns out anybody can write a book. Literally anybody can do that.
Yep.
If you can put words together, then you can write a book.
You don't even have to be able to put words together. Actually, AI can actually write a whole book for you.
That's right.
So, anyway.
I tried to go to that today for work purposes.
Okay.
because like I've had people ask me about it, and it was too busy. It wouldn't let me on.
Wow. The
Yeah.
server was not.
But on the
capable.
news, they have been doing nothing but talking about Chat GPT. It's basically constantly all they talk about. Oh, look, this person asked it to do this, and it passed Wharton Business School. It passed a test from the Wharton School of Business, which was like an essay test, and it got a B or something. And so
It's wild.
everybody's freaking out about it because they're like, oh, why would you pay so much money to go to the Wharton School of Business when you could just go to chat.openai.com and have it give you all the answers? Good question, I think.
Knowledge versus wisdom.
I would love to do an episode on AI, not because I know anything about it, but just because it's crazy. And
It is wild.
I would like to do an episode where we got somebody
Who knew something
about it.
Let us know if you are somebody who knows a lot about
who would
it.
be like the perfect Catholic AI guest. We would like to have him on.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
So we're going to talk about emotions or passions.
Okay. Are they the same?
Well,
Not quite the same, are they?
we can talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
The reason why I came into this topic was we're doing a great books. We have a great books club where we have guys come together and we're reading, the great books.
Yeah.
We started with Plato's Dialogue. We talked about this on the show.
Guys Afternoon In.
Yeah. I'm not gonna finish that. So we start with Plato's Dialogues. Deacon Harrison Garlick hosts us, and we all read, and then get together and have, a beer or wine or whatever, and talk about.
We're doing the Iliad right now.
Doing the Iliad right now.
I did not do the readings, but I did watch the movie Troy.
So it's basically
before
you're set.
Exodus started. So I feel like I did good enough.
Yeah, you basically have read Iliad and the Odyssey.
Right.
But
no, not the Odyssey, but the Iliad.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't go into the Odyssey.
Yeah, it does.
Not Troy. Not the movie Troy. No.
Yeah, they have the whole horse, the Trojan horse.
Well, but it doesn't actually go into Odysseus's return home.
Right.
You're right. It does have the horse in there.
So we've read the first 4 books, and in the first 4 books, the third book,
the first 4 chapters, they call them
correct.
books.
They call them books. Good distinction. In the third book, you have Menelaus and you have Paris. They're about to fight, right? And Paris is this guy.
That's in the movie. I saw that.
Yeah, and Paris is this guy who is just his passions for lust are just out of control.
He's very effeminate.
He's very
He's
effeminate.
like the prototypical effeminate man.
Right, and so lust is just completely overrunning him. Like his thoughts, everything that he controls him,
Causes him to make a lot of bad decisions.
Right, and then you have Menelaus, who is all about his irascible appetites are just controlling him. Right, he has anger and just rage. And they're about to fight and pride. Yeah, and they're about to fight, and so it's just like this irascible versus concupiscent appetites fighting one another.
Between the two, though, Menelaus has a lot more virtue than Paris because at least he has honor. He is steeped in the things that you mentioned, but he does have dignity and honor at least.
Yes. But anyway, I was thinking about just this idea of these 2 different types of appetites fighting one another, and combating in these 2 characters and the roles that they play and what it means. And so I thought, well, let's actually talk about passions. Let's talk about appetites. We've talked about it before on the show, concupiscible appetites and irascible appetites, but turns out a little bit.
I think we should define those things.
Sure, we will. But turns out like there's different parts of these things that make up concupiscible and irascible appetites, right?
Okay.
So passions, we were talking about passions and appetites, and you're like, or passions and emotions, and you're like, well, is that actually the same thing? It used to be just passions, like the pathos, right? Until like the 18th century, emotions was brought into the literary world, and so they kind of are interchangeable now.
Emotion comes from a Greek word which means to move.
To move, correct.
Is that in your notes?
No, it's not, but I did read that. Appetite is orexis, okay, and so it means to act also.
Okay.
So also to move. That's why, like, if you are anorexic, you do not desire food. You don't want to move to food.
Oh, like you're against the appetite.
The appetite, right? You know, so people who are passionless suffer from a sort of anorexia of emotion.
Indeed.
You know, so
I really like the origin of words. I always think that's fascinating.
The etymology of words?
Etymology is the word that I could not think of. So I went with origin, which is a little bit ironic.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
A little too ironic?
It's a little bit pathetic.
So, you know, the apathetic is inclined not to act. You know, the passionate are inclined to act, or emotions to act. So anyway, passions, you know, is governed by reason, right? However, that your passions can overrun your reason and things can run amok very quickly.
Because the passions are things that they don't have their origin inside of you. They're things. These are influences that are external, that act upon the intellect. They don't come from the intellect, right? So it's
right.
The intellect's job to control these outside forces that are playing upon it.
Right. So it's so that the official definition of passion, so to speak, from Aquinas is it's a movement of the sense of appetite, which follows the apprehension of the senses, and is accompanied by a bodily transmutation or movement. Right. So it's this.
I try to use the word transmutation like in my daily.
Yeah, that's when I read that. I was like, okay, but here's.
Would you transmute the food, please, to the table? What? You heard me.
Here's something that's interesting, though. Passions are morally neutral in themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So when you hear concupiscible or irascible,
you tend to think the word concupiscence, bad.
Right.
But that's
immediately.
But that's not necessarily true. Concupiscence actually is like, there's a couple different ways you can use that word, but.
Now, if they control your reason and usurp your reasoning, then that's a bad. You know, then it becomes a bad thing.
Yeah.
But so he talks about that there are 11 basic emotions within concupiscible and irascible appetites. We'll talk about these first, and then it'll kind of break down a little bit easier. Okay. So he talks about there are 11 basic emotions that Aquinas has formulated, and they are love and hate, desire and aversion, joy and sorrow, hope, despair, courage, fear, and anger.
Anger doesn't have a diametric.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yes, for sure, because it's very clear that anger is the only one that doesn't have an opposing side, right? Now, the first. All emotions, this is what's really interesting, all emotions hinge on love. Okay, now not love like as a willing of the good of the other, but love as in you see something that is...
Eros.
Yeah. You see something that is good.
Yeah, it is in fact Eros.
So love is the primary mover of emotions, right? And so without love, none of the other emotions can exist. Mm-hmm. Because you're always geared towards something that is love. Hate cannot be the primary emotion. Good attracts us, not hate. Right? This is why, like, we hate disease because we love health, not vice versa.
Right.
Right? So all negative emotions, whether concupiscible or irascible, cannot arise if they are perceived to be a good, so to speak. So when we get back, I want to, like, we listed the 11, but they break down really nicely. And we'll talk about this on the other side of the break.
Okay. I think you need to define concupiscible.
We will.
Well, you keep using the word. I don't think you should keep using it.
Well, it flows better this way.
Well, you should define it because you keep using the word. And people are not going to know what you mean.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
We will. That's the next thing we're going to talk about.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. When we get, I think that should be what you do next.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Ready?
I am. Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Talking about passions, talking about emotions. Today,
Yes, we are.
this is what we are doing.
Yes, today we are talking about the emotions.
It's something that, I haven't. I was just
Wonder what
really
ChatGPT would have to say about emotions.
a lot.
It would actually.
Yes. This is something that I was really studying up on, like we had talked about in the other segment. Just trying to understand how to segment all these things out. What are the different types of emotions? What makes up these different types of emotions? I think it's good to know what they are, so that way you know what you're combating and what you're needing to be aware of when making decisions. So that way your intellect and your will can form your appetites, not the other way around.
Right.
Right. So there are 11 of them that St. Thomas Aquinas talks about. The first 6, or the 3 pairs, love, hate. I just lost my notes here. Love, hate, desire, aversion, and joy and sorrow. Okay, these are, like we talked about, how everything is ordered in love, right? So
yes.
So love, hate. So you see something that you love, you see something that arises, and your first inclination is, this is a good.
Mm-hmm.
And so you desire it, right? And so then you have it, and there's a joy that is brought because of the good, right? So like you're like thirsty, and you say like, I'd like a beer, and you go and you go to the tavern and you order a beer, and you see the beer, and then you have the beer, and it is good. It gives you joy.
Yes.
Right. So there's the opposite of those, right? That we were just talking about. The hate, the love, hate, the desire, aversion, and the joy and sorrow. Right. So the hate, aversion, and sorrow is you see something that is evil, you try to avoid it. If you don't, it brings you sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So these 3 pair are what is classified as concupiscible appetites. Okay, so it's basically the pursuit of the good with avoiding pain. It's very easy to obtain. Irascible appetites have to do with things that are arduous. Concupiscible appetites have to do with something that is very easy to obtain.
Okay. Do they tend to be intellectual in nature or not necessarily?
No, they do not. No. Also, throughout history, it's very interesting that concupiscible appetites have also been called positive appetites or emotions of pleasure.
Okay.
So, concupiscible appetites are of the lowest level, and then the irascible appetites are above that.
Okay.
Because obviously, you can see.
And you're saying concupiscible and irascible.
Irascible.
Okay.
Am I saying it fast?
Yeah.
Or am I saying it?
It's just like one of those words that like people might be going, "What is he saying?" Concupiscible.
Concupiscible and irascible.
Irascible.
Irascible appetites. Yeah.
Can you spell without looking irascible?
It's really weird because there's only one R. It's
I cannot spell it without looking.
It seems like it should be IRR something,
right?
But it's not.
It's not English. That's why.
Yeah, it's what? Greek?
Probably Greek.
Yeah. So the last 5: hope, despair, courage, fear, and anger.
So it's courage, not daring.
Well, it's
same.
Same. It's just a translation.
Same.
Yeah, are known as the irascible appetites, right? And these are the what it's called, like the emergency appetite. These are things that like kick in almost instinctually.
Fight or flight.
So to speak. In fact, that's why at one point in time they were called like the masculine appetites or the emergency appetites. They were also called contending emotions or utility emotions. These are all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're basically emergency or contending emotions. They arise when some monumentous good or evil appears, which is difficult to attain or avoid. So, like an example would be hijacker in a plane, right? So there's going to be people who have hope that we're going to get out of this. There's going to be people who are going to take courage to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be people who completely despair and say we're all doomed. And there's just going to be people who are just going to be completely afraid.
Yeah.
right?
Because they despair.
Because they despair.
Yeah.
The higher the level of the intensity of this act is, if it is overcome, the more joy there is. Right?
But at the end, everyone's angry because they shouldn't have had to deal with that anyway.
No.
Even if you were hopeful and courageous, it's like, yeah, but I shouldn't have had to fight the hijacker. That guy's the worst.
No. But yeah, that's kind of funny. But
so they don't all lead to anger.
They don't all lead to anger.
Good. I'm glad that all roads don't lead to anger. That brings me hope.
Yeah. So hope is more like the absent, like the good is absent but attainable. Like there's like you can see it. It's not there, but you can hope for it. That's why there's no hope in heaven.
Right, because there's nothing left to hope
for. You're already there.
Yeah.
There's courage is like threatening, but like the evil is conquerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can still do it. Like you're on there's a hijacker on the plane, but you can see that there's an out. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the train, so to speak.
Yeah.
Despair is just like like the good is absent and unattainable. Like you're just all despair. Like in Dante's Inferno. Like what is it? Ye who enter here, all.
Oh yeah.
At the very beginning, it's like all hope.
Yeah, cast hope aside.
All despair, all ye who enter here, or something like that. Because you're entering hell, you have no more hope.
Right.
Like there's no way of getting out.
There's no hope in the afterlife, no matter what. No hope in heaven. No hope in hell.
There's hope in purgatory, so to speak.
I mean, but you don't.
Well,
no,
I don't know. Yeah, maybe
hope
not,
because you already are.
You know
you
that
you have assurance.
That
there's nothing left to hope for. You made the cut.
Mm-hmm. But fear is threat, like this threatening but unconquerable evil.
That's fear. It has to be unconquerable.
Yeah, that's what this is like. Yeah, because this is like the opposite of courage.
Okay.
So to speak.
You view it to be
unconquerable, right?
Okay.
So anyway, in order to get out of despair, there has to be hope. In order to get out of fear, there has to be you have to have courage. The soul may be attracted in love towards something that is not necessarily a good, which is where the disorder comes in, right? Because we talked about the other side of the break, that everything is geared towards love. Like you can't do something that you don't think is a good. Now, whether it is actually a good or not is, up for debate.
Right.
But you can perceive something to be good that is actually not good.
Sure.
And you obtain it. So you desire something that you love. It's desirable, and then it's not a good, and you don't actually get that joy. You get sorrow. Right, so it's like the equation goes both ways.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important to be able to train your intellect and will to be able to perceive what is good for good's sake, for that is truly good.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we could obtain it. Right. This is what the virtuous life is all about: is doing the habituation of the good, and being able to recognize it, and now. Not only being able to recognize it, but doing it over and over again to where it's no longer even a thought. It's just what you do.
It's a virtue, right? Yeah, this is part of when God says that He has written His law on our hearts, right? That there is just, it's almost like a law of physics, that when you obtain, even if you view something to be good, but it isn't, it will not satisfy you.
Right.
That you will.
This is why
you will know at the depth of your being at some point. You in the beginning, the moment you get it, you might experience pleasure, and satisfaction at the fact that you have achieved what you sought after, and it might in fact been a pleasurable thing, but it will not satisfy you. It won't bring that joy.
The means in which you obtained it did not satisfy the end.
Right, and you will find over time that your appetites are not satiated, right?
Right.
That
it's not satisfying.
Right, that you need to continue, that there's just something else that's not at rest in you. I mean, so this is like part of God writing his law on your heart. It's,
Right.
it's stamped into your very being.
This is
that you're made for the good.
Right, and this
for
is
nothing less.
This is like an episode we talked about with Deacon Garlic on Eros, on erotic love. It's this ascend of the good, like, you know. So this is the whole problem.
I highly recommend that episode.
It's really
go back
good.
and listen. If you haven't listened to that on erotic love, go back and listen to it, because really what we're talking about here is in fact Eros. It is erotic love, and it's just that's one of those things that people just don't know about. They think it's just sexual love, and that certainly is erotic, but that's not what erotic love is.
Right, and so this is what pornography does, right? So you see there is a good, namely that procreation is a good, right? You know, and you see it.
The beauty of woman
the beauty
is good.
Is all good. Like, we're not Manichaeists,
right?
So to speak. You know,
I'm not.
I'm not either.
Oh, good.
Jim.
No. Okay. He says no.
He says no.
Good.
But there is a good there, but the means in which you satisfy that good is not is in a disordered way, and it's not how it doesn't follow natural law.
You will have an appetite towards the beauty of woman, and this is the whole point, that we all have to use our intellect, because yes, you're made with this appetite. Sexual appetite for all kinds of things, and the pursuit of holiness in large part is simply about self-mastery and controlling those appetites,
so that way we can orient ourselves to the highest good, namely God.
That's right.
Because He alone can only satisfy us.
That we're not pulled along by them, we pull them along. You know, we tell them what to do,
not vice versa.
Not vice versa.
Okay, just letting you know, I don't have a whole lot more.
Well, bro, you better start, tap dancing or something. How could we go through 3 pages?
Well, I have a little bit more. Well, this right here is actually the exact same thing.
Did you write all this?
I typed it all.
But a lot of it is quotes.
Well, like from Aquinas.
Yeah.
And then some is from Dennis Quinn. But
the medicine woman?
No, that's Dr. Quinn.
Okay.
That's Jane Seymour. My first crush.
Really?
Jane Seymour.
I do not know who she is.
Dr. Quinn, medicine woman.
I don't know. I don't really know what she looks like.
She also did all of the
watch
jewelry commercials. Remember back then?
I didn't watch the show. I have no idea what she looks like.
She was redheaded.
She's
a beautiful redheaded woman.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I just am saying I don't know her. I don't know she, okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles, here with Adam Minahan. Sipping on some water. Is this filtered?
It is.
Berkey water? Is this Berkey water?
It's not Berkey water.
You have another filter other than you have a fridge now.
Filter, yeah.
Do you still use the Berkey?
Not a lot. Not as much, because it's just not as convenient.
Yeah. It's like you and I have switched places.
Yeah.
You, for a long time, did not have a refrigerator with a water dispenser, and I was always thinking, like, man, you guys really need to get a refrigerator with a water dispenser. And now I moved, and the house came with this huge fridge
that doesn't have a
water dispenser. It makes me so mad. And now you guys have a fridge with a water dispenser, and you're probably coming over to our house going like, man, you guys really got to get a fridge with a water dispenser.
You should get a Berkey.
It's way better. I have noticed, I've said this before, but there's an incredibly high correlation between possession of a Berkey water filter and attendance at the traditional Latin Mass.
I break the rule.
But yeah, you do. You're not like the super high, like, correlated thing that I'm talking about. But
right.
But you know what? If you attend if you're one of those people who like, oh, I go to the TLM, there's a good chance you have a Berkey water filter in your kitchen.
I was thinking about this just the other day. Outside of going to Clear Creek, which, by the way, we're going to Clear Creek this week.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped for a little retreat.
Get my quiet on.
Mm-hmm. Outside of going there, I haven't been to the traditional Latin Mass since before COVID.
I haven't either. And we were in the habit of sort of going like about every 3 months. We tried to go about every month, which means that we actually went like every 3 months. But yeah, then when COVID hit and Mass was all crazy,
right.
You had to like register, like reserve your spot for Mass at their parish. And I knew that it was like, I'm not going to go and take up a spot.
A parishioner spot.
Yeah, exactly. I can go to my own parish, and not bump somebody else from going to Mass on Sunday. And
right.
Totally got out of the habit of going over there now.
Mm-hmm.
I should go.
I would like to as well. Yeah. So we're talking about appetites. We're talking about controlling your appetites and making sure that your appetites are not overrunning your intellect or will. You always are everything is geared in love, right? Like we talked about. And so this is what on the other side or before the break we were talking about how this is how pornography just completely corrupts not only obviously it being a grave sin, but it also like just corrupts your imagination. It ruins it it destroys all it destroys all that is of wonder and awe, because it's not that.
Right.
It's you're not it's just pixel. It's a fake. It's not real. And I don't know. So
it's
like
shallow.
It's shallow.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
It's hollow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need to make a correction. Earlier I said concupiscible, and that it's concupiscible. Concupiscible.
Concupiscible.
No.
No. Now, see, you got me all messed up.
Concupiscible. There's a P in there. I was leaving the P out. Concupiscible. So you've got the concupiscible appetites: love, hate, desire, aversion, joy, and sorrow. And then you've got the irascible of hope, despair, courage, fear, and anger. The concupiscible appetites are lower, meaning that like they're more base, they're simpler, they kind of come first, so to speak. So does that make them like in a hierarchy? Do you need to control? Can you have self-mastery over your irascible appetites if you don't first have mastery over your concupiscible appetites?
No, I don't believe so.
I think you have to have
control. Yeah, because your irascible appetites can override all your concupiscible appetites anyway.
Right, because if you don't know what to love, then you won't be able to hope.
That's right. Yeah, and love is concupiscible.
Right, that's the first level of concupiscible is the love, hate. The first level of irascible is the hope or despair.
Right.
So, but if you don't have a love, if you don't have a beloved, a thing, right, or person, then you won't be able to hope for the attainment of the thing which is loved.
That's right.
You can't hope for anything if you don't love something first.
That's right. There's something else. So it says, because passions are susceptible to becoming disordered. So, right. So as we talked about, like pornography or other things, like your passions you can satiate your desires or your passions in things that are disordered, which never satisfy you completely. This is the beauty of fasting and feasting. This is the beauty of, controlling your appetite so that way you can truly feast. A man who is always feasting can never truly feast.
Right.
A glutton can never truly feast.
Right. Because he's enslaved to his appetite for feasting.
That's right. So the will needs to be perfected by settled dispositions or habits by which it can direct the passions to appropriate objects. Right. So that way you can focus on the things of the true, basically the transcendental, right?
The actual good of feasting instead of the
right thing at the right time with the right amount.
If you can't say no, your yes means nothing.
Right.
So earlier, when I asked you about is the concupiscible appetites, are they intellectual? I think it's because there is more of an intellectual element to them, right? You have to know what you love, right? You have to have an understanding of the good so that you can love it. there's more of this intellectual.
No, I think actually it's the opposite.
You really okay?
Yeah, I think it talks about that the irascible appetites actually take more time to think about. That the concupiscible ones are more of just you just don't think about it because it's more of a danger. Like, hold on, let me find this.
Yeah, I'm also maybe just not explaining this clearly. I'm thinking of like if you don't have knowledge of the good, then you can't love it, right? So you need to, your intellect needs to have some knowledge of the good that is loved.
Yeah, so it's Aquinas says the irascible appetites are more likely to beget thought because of the difficulty involved, and if overcome, will result in greater joy.
Okay.
Because it's more difficult.
Yeah. So
difficult.
Right. Yeah, I understand that point. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just not doing a very good job of expressing
okay.
it. Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were
the
asking
irascible appetites. They do take
more intellectual power.
Yes, intellectual power. Right. But the concupiscible appetites, it's just like, oh yeah, I know the good. I have a comprehension, I have this understanding, this knowledge about them, and so that's why I love them. That's why I desire it because I know it. You know,
yeah, right.
I don't have to like think about it, like what Aquinas is saying, but there's this intellectual understanding, right? Yeah, it doesn't actually take the intellect to do any work, but you know, it's sort of like, the tree. Well, I have knowledge of what a tree is, right? Not necessarily a specific tree, but like treeness. I have encountered enough trees where, like, I have this general concept
of
trees, right? And so that's what I meant by like an intellectual element to the concupiscible appetites.
Because they're tangible. It's more tangible.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's just like, oh yes, I know I have a knowledge of the thing, and so therefore I can desire it. Without a knowledge of the good, you can't. It's not possible for you to desire something that you don't know, right? Like
yeah.
If you,
I mean, that's why
you've never heard of or had baklava,
right,
or candy. Let me put it in terms you can understand.
Why don't you explain it to me like I'm 5?
Right. If you've never heard of candy, okay, let's say you grew up in like Antarctica.
Okay.
It's been a rough life. You've never heard the word candy. No one's ever given you candy. You've had nothing but like snow
cones
for your whole life. Gross. You can't desire candy because you have no knowledge of it, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah,
okay, good.
This is why, like what we were saying earlier, is that you can't actually do something that you don't perceive to be a good. Now, the good in which you perceive can be a disordered, in like your intellect could be misguiding you. Your conscience can even be misguiding you.
Yeah.
But you can't do something that you don't perceive to be a good.
Correct. Yeah, and you know what? This kind of reminds me of like this something else we've talked about. Maybe this is sidetrack. So stop me if I'm.
No, go ahead. I mean, this is the
we've
show.
Talked about
this is what we do. We sidetrack
the idea of
all the time.
The psychology of rationalization. How they've proven psychologically that you are actually incapable of making a choice that you don't view to be the best choice. So if you're given like 3 options, you're actually incapable of choosing one.
Is this Robert Riley?
Well, Dr. Robert Riley, the opening chapter of his book, Making Gay Okay, he goes, it's the first or second chapter. He talks about this as a psychological principle and why it is that people get so ingrained into these different moral lifestyles that they've chosen, and that they will just fight to the death, you know, instead of just like, hey guys, I'm just trying to have a polite, you know, intellectual conversation, and all of a sudden you're screaming and like
your emotions are
and like yelling obscenities at me.
Right.
I thought we were just like talking, you know, and now all of a sudden you're like seething and foaming at the mouth. And it's because when you make a choice, you cannot choose it unless you view it to be the best choice. Now you might add extra elements to the equation. it's like, oh, I know this might be the right choice, but if I choose this other one, I'll look good, or it'll be easier, right? But at the end of the day, even at a subconscious level, you have rationalized this decision, and you have not made a good choice, right?
Right.
It just kind of reminds me about, like you're incapable of choosing the evil, right? You're just made for the good. And you can't avoid choosing it no matter what you do.
Even if you're disordered.
Right, exactly. And you might be. But we're made for the good. We're made for God.
All right, we're out of time on the radio. Go check us out on thecatholicmanshow.com. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
Cheers to Jesus.
So again, as you can tell, I'm not an expert in this by any means. However, I think it's very important to talk about, even if we're just I'm just talking through my understanding of it on air. This is like, most people, what they do is they have an intellectual life where they read things and then they ponder it for a long time and then they come to a conclusion. Well, what we do on the show is like we read something and then we ponder
Let's figure it out on the
air for everybody else to hear, and then we try to come up with conclusions. So this is but it's good to know what's happening, because if your passions or your appetites are so out of control, you can be blinded to reality, right? You can be blinded to that good.
Yeah.
And in order to be able to see, you have to know what is obstructing your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're in the cave, you have to know that there is something outside this cave.
Yeah. The shadows on the wall.
I mean, this is just an allegory that I'm just completely coming up with.
You're just kind of making this up. I mean, let's just say you're in a cave.
Hypothetically, you're in a cave.
Let's say there's a fire at the mouth of the cave.
And let's just say there's things that are being projected.
Right, causing these just spitballing some shadows on the wall.
Right, and you think this is reality.
And it's all you've known, and you think this is the whole world of these shadows.
And then you actually get out of the cave.
Let's say it's me.
Okay.
Let's say I get out of the cave and I realize
there's more to this world than these shadows.
There's this whole other world, and it's just a fire, and the stuff you're looking at is just shadows.
But if you've been habituated to these shadows this whole time,
let's say you were that person.
Let's say hypothetically,
this is a great analogy.
I walk out of the cave, but I've been so habituated to the shadows in the cave that I actually can't handle the reality, and I desire to go back down to the shadows.
Yeah.
And I neglect the higher good for the lower goods.
We should write this down.
Right.
So we should make it allegorical again.
Mm-hmm.
We have
so this is
CatholicManShow.com. Go check out our shop. You can get our sweatshirt. Make Plato's Cave allegorical again. It's a philosophical deep track sweatshirt.
Yeah. Not a lot of those out there.
No. But if you want one, we'll sell you one.
But this is the problem, right? Whenever you've habituated yourself to the lower goods, that when you're exposed to the higher goods, your appetites are so controlling your will that you can't even enjoy the higher goods because you're a slave to these lower ones.
Yeah, and I think this is especially important for men because we tend to be creatures of our appetites, whether it's visual appetites, whether it's actual food appetites, right? So we tend to be much more influenced by these passions in our lives than women are per se. Women have their own struggles, but men, we tend to be food driven. It's true what they say about the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. There's a reason why that's a saying, and so we have a tendency to become enslaved to these very base animalistic elements of us, and it's a shame.
Because we're not made for that. We're made for contemplation. We're made to rest in God. And if you have,
which is the same as women. Women, we're not distinguished from women in that.
Right. But we're all made for contemplation, right? To adore our Creator, and that's why a lot of times when we go to adoration, and we sit there for an hour, it's very hard. And we start thinking about, oh man, I'm hungry, or oh man, I got to go do this. I have all these things, and your mind gets flooded with distractions, or there's different things that your body is wanting you to do outside of this contemplation because you don't have your body's appetites quieted.
Right.
The good news is that whenever you habituate yourself to the higher goods, the thought of disorderly doing something of the lower goods, it becomes like unfathomable. Like, the more that you remain in the state of grace,
it's repulsive. It becomes repulsive.
Right. Yeah. It's just repulsive to think about a mortal sin. It's not like even tempting any, at all.
Right.
It becomes like just distasteful and like just, you're just completely shunning it away. Like there's not even a thought. It's not even something, a concept that you'd want to do.
Yeah.
And this is what the beauty of, being the economy of grace is. The beauty of the life within of Christ is that when you quiet your lower appetites so that you can thrive, the higher goods can thrive in your life, you get moved up to a higher banquet, so to speak, and feast with the Lamb.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to finish this point about men, how important this is for men, because
I thought you were. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you had a good segue from it. Now I'm going to segue back to it.
Okay.
Men, given more power and authority in this world, it's more important for us to have our appetites under control, because if we fail to, then we become more of a tyrant, right?
Because the power that we're given, who's it for?
Right, it's for the people that we serve, right? But you look at a child, their appetites are not in control.
They're running amok.
Right, and that's part of being a child, is learning slowly to control them. So that's why God saw it fit that they're not very strong. Okay, like, thank God.
Strong babies would be a nightmare.
Right. Like, what if your 3-year-old was as strong as you? Like, I'm not sure there'd be very many humans left. It would be a different, parenting would be a different situation.
Right.
So that's why it's important for men, especially, to have their passions under control. Because we actually have, with more power, we have a greater obligation to have self-mastery, because when we fail to, the consequences are also greater. And
the self-mastery actually becomes a love, right? When you're going through ascetic practices.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At first they're hard, right? Because you're in this rut. Your appetites are very loud and they're controlling, and you're deviating from this rut, so to speak, this deep ingrained rut that you live, and it's trying to get you back into that rut.
Yeah.
But whenever you start doing these ascetic practices and you're starting to live this life of grace and this seeing the true, the good, and the beautiful, the thought of being able to offer up these things for our Lord or for another, willing the good of the other, desiring the good of the other, becomes such a joy. And this is what you see in, Teresa of Lisieux, Teresa of Avila, St. John of the Cross, all these mystics and these doctors of the church. When they talk about these writings, St. Francis de Sales, I mean, when they're writing this stuff and you're reading and you're like, what? She stayed up all night long and deprived herself of sleep, and then did all these different things, and all she was doing is rejoicing that she was able to do it for the Lord. Right. Like, I'd be so cranky, I'd be like,
that's not healthy.
That's not even good. Yeah. But it's because she's been able to quiet her bodily appetites, so that she's able to see Christ in reality as it truly is.
I do think loud, the word you used, is really the best word to describe disordered appetites. If you try to pray, you just can't. They're like yelling at you the whole time, about, your attention span is so short that you can't even sit there. I mean, it's like, just like Christ telling the apostles, you couldn't even pray for an hour. It's like, have you tried to pray for an hour without being distracted? I'll give you $1 million if you can do it.
Our Father who art in heaven.
Right.
Wait, $1 million?
Right. Yeah. Now, is that in cash?
Yeah. Pre-tax?
Yeah. Okay. Let me start over.
Yeah.
Now, can I get it in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, for me, it's just out of not a possibility for me. But I'm working.
You know what, Dave? It is a possibility.
It is a possibility. You're right.
You're made for it, actually.
I'm just despairing of that hope.
Take courage.
I will.
Take courage.
Through your friendship.
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, this, like, I was just trying to work this out in my head, and it all stemmed from reading some of the great books, which is something that is awesome to do, to read good books with good friends and talk about them, because this, none of this would have I would have talked about on the show had it not been for that. But it's good also just to know and be aware, so that way you can put your guard up or let your guard down.
I finished a book today.
Oh, what was it?
Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Oh, yeah?
It's a kid's book.
Right?
Delightful. It's just a delightful. I've read it before, but I read it to the kids. We finished it today. It's just a lovely little book.
I'm almost done with The Way of the Pilgrim. Have you read this?
Is that the Protestant book? No, that's Pilgrim's Progress.
No. The Way of the Pilgrim, it's like Russian Orthodox, actually.
Okay. No, I've not read it.
It's about, the Jesus prayer.
Yeah.
Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the best books talking about the Jesus prayer.
Okay.
Incredible book by this like monk hermit guy. I would love to find somebody who's an expert on the topic and talk to him about it. I have not read the sequel. I think it's a sequel, not a prequel. I think it's the sequel. Yeah. It has to be the sequel, because it's like the Pilgrim's Journey continues or something like that. I think so. Can't be a prequel. So I haven't read that one yet, but the first one's supposed to be really, really good. So I'm almost finished that, and I'd love to talk to somebody about it. It's a short book too. I like short books.
Yeah,
I like short books. So I'm reading that. I'm reading the Iliad, and then I'm reading Iris Exiled, which is Dr. Dennis Quinn's book. He was one of the 3 in the humanities program with John Senior.
Nice.
He's one of the 3 professors.
Yeah.
And the book is all on wonder.
I wonder what it's about.
He's still talking about the origin of the word wonder, which is mind-boggling. But
yeah, like, anyway. Do you think Wonder Woman had a lot of questions?
I think that's just just bad.